in 10 days of that 30 days, I want to break even with what my long-term rental would have produced.
Okay.
That was my initial analysis, right? And there were other like comparables, and I could go and see like what other people were charging. But my goal was to make the same amount of money in 10 days renting that property as I did in 30 days. And that proved to be a good model.
All right, welcome back. I'm Jason Andrus.
I'm Colter Hansen.
And we're going to talk today about short-term rentals.
I love this topic.
I do too, and it's funny, we just did a little networking luncheon talking about real estate, and it's funny how people refer to short-term rentals as AirBNBs. It's like the Kleenex of the tissue or the hacky sack of the foot bag, right? Everybody. Or if you're gonna research something, it's, hey, go Google it. Or if you're gonna ship something, go FedEx it. Airbnb is kind of the short-term rental monopoly. It really is.
It really is. Yeah, they have coined, their brand so well that it really is the Band-Aid to the
there you go. There's another one, Band-Aid. Love it.
So, and I love this topic so much because it was about 5 years ago that I took all of my long-term rentals, and I shouldn't say all, about 80% though of my long-term rentals I converted into Airbnbs.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It has been, yeah.
That's awesome.
That's what I did.
Oh, okay.
That's been a really interesting journey from going from the long-term rentals and dealing with the issues and the things that you address there to a completely different service model that is included in short-term rentals, Airbnbs, VRBOs, Booking.coms, all of the all of those platforms that you're able to use to get short-term rentals. And it's been a really cool journey. I love the Airbnb VRBO model, and have been able to increase revenue. But it comes with its challenges. So,
did you even hear the word short-term rental 10 years ago?
No.
Yeah.
No.
15 years ago.
In fact, you ran away from it.
Yeah.
That's what's funny is that you would run away from it. Like if somebody came in and says, I just want to rent your house for 3 months, and you're like, no
way.
You can destroy my house the same amount as the person that stays there for 2 years and pays me as you can in 3 months. Like, I don't need to deal with that headache. And now it's like, you want to stay in my house for a night? Absolutely. Let me sign up for that. It's kind of like I'm going to get in your car with a stranger and you're going to drive me across town. Love that. Have we just gone totally loopy or what's going on?
That's true.
But the short-term rental was attractive to me because I took our long-term rental revenue and if not 50 to 100% increase in revenue by that one decision.
That's awesome. So instead of renting out 30 days at a time, you broke it up and rent nightly at a time. Isn't that funny? Everybody knows the balls in town and the jerky and everything else. And I remember one day he told me, he's like, everybody sells meat by the pound. I sell it by the ounce. And that's basically what you're doing with the short-term rental. Instead of renting it monthly, you're renting it nightly. And you can charge more per night than you can per month, but it's the same property, same mortgage, right?
What a great example, too. I mean, you're taking this pound and you're breaking it down by the ounce and being able to sell it. The same thing with this rental. You take 30 days, it's in your monthly rental. And the way that I calculated my first initial analysis was like, okay, if I rent this for 30 days and it's $1,000 a month, if I'm going to take the risk or the headache and the conversations to, potentially on nightly rentals, in 10 days of that 30 days, I want to break even with what my long-term rental would have produced.
Okay.
That was my initial analysis, right? And there were other like comparables and I could go and see like what other people were charging. But my goal was to make the same amount of money in 10 days renting that property as I did in 30 days. And that proved to be a good model. So
that's great. I've done a couple Airbnbs, short-term rentals, and they've done well. One of them, I bought a condo and in a place where I went through all their HOAs, everything. Nothing said that couldn't be done, but I got it, furnished it, started renting it out, and the manager of the HOA, who by the way owns 5 condo units in there, and rents them out, and he rents them out 30 days at a time, so it's okay. His interpretation. But anyways, after about 2 months, he came and says, you can't have these nightly rentals. This is against our HOA. And I was like, doesn't say anything anywhere in this. And then he turned to me after I didn't stop, after about another month and a half, and says, if you don't stop this, I'm going to make your life a living H. I'm like, what? Like, what's the matter? So I went to my lawyer, and he's a buddy of mine, and he's like, look, we could fight this, but he's going to make your life a living heck. So why do you want the headache? Just sell it, go do it someplace else. So we did. Found it. I bought it, owned it for only 4 months, 5 months, and I still was able to make $20,000 off what I bought it for because the market was so hot.
Yeah.
So I did okay on it, but and then I had another one that I did for quite a while, but nothing at the volume that you're doing. But here's what's interesting I learned today about Colter is he just said, how many years ago you turned 80% into short-term rentals?
I did.
And then what did you just tell us today you're going to do?
So yeah, as of this year, you can see that there's actually been a decline in a lot of your short-term rentals. And I wouldn't say
Is that because of oversaturation?
That's, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So you have a couple of factors working in there. You have oversaturation, which means you have so many people that were excited about Airbnb, VRBO, short-term rentals that they went and bought their own investment property. And they're like, I want to go to this vacation area and I want to do that one time a year, but I also want it to pay for itself. So I'm going to set it up on Airbnb and I'm okay with dealing with the messaging and I'm okay with dealing with cleaners, but I want to own a house and I'm going to invest and I'm going to turn it into a short-term rental. So you have what's created this oversupply of the short-term rental market. And what it's done to pricing is you have this supply and demand that changes based on basic economics.
Yeah.
And where you have an oversupply, you have less demand to meet that supply.
So then you have to start dropping your prices per night to be competitive.
And so we've met that point in the market where you have too many properties, too many options, meaning that you're spreading out the number of bookings across maybe 1,000 Airbnbs in an area, whereas it would have been maybe 300 or 400 3 years ago.
So knowing you're a numbers guy, when you first told us you figured if in 10 days I can cover what I would have done in 30 days, then I'm going to turn it an Airbnb. So that 10 days must have not covered your $1,000 you wanted a month, right?
So now I have to flip it on its head and say, okay, where are my long-term rentals? Because there's a couple of factors that are changing your long-term rental market. Because a lot of your houses have changed to the short-term market, instead of being in the long-term, you have less supply in your long-term rentals, and meaning you have a higher demand.
Isn't that interesting? And it really might seem simple, but it's really interesting. And it's funny how much of a fad the short-term rental market was. When your next door neighbor that works at the site that's an engineer has 2 Airbnbs, it's probably about time to be oversaturated. that's what happens. It becomes a fad. And somebody gets on Facebook and says, "Oh, I just got my second short-term rental." And they're like, "Well, I want a short-term rental. How come I can't have one? That looks so much like fun, and this looks great." And like you said, a lot of my friends have cabins up in Island Park. They can't afford a cabin in Island Park, but if it's short-term rental that covers the mortgage every single month, they can afford to have one, and then they go up there 4 times, 5 times a year, book it out for a week for themselves. They own a cabin in Island Park. Then they can say to their friends, "We're going to go to the cabin this weekend." That makes them feel important, right? Even though the only reason why they're able to afford it is because they do the short-term rental thing. I heard the other day that Island Park's over 80% short-term rentals now. 80% short-term rentals.
And if that's not oversaturated, I don't know what is.
Exactly.
Right? Like
and everybody says up there, it's still crazy for 3.5 months. Like they're booked solid for 3.5, 4 months. But it's the wintertime that they...
Yeah, and that doesn't sound like a vacation, right?
No.
If everybody's going there to rub shoulders, like I could just go to Walmart and be like, "Hey, you know what? This isn't where I want to be."
Well, maybe a little more upper class, like Target.
Target.
Not so much Walmart.
I'm not sure that we improved there. So at the end of the day, the short-term rentals have been a shifting market. That's what we're in right now. And so because you have this oversaturation, the overuse of the short-term rental model, and now you have an opportunity in long-term rentals. And so my objective in the coming months is that my Airbnbs, the ones that perform less and less, will be converted back into long-term rentals.
Now, see, I think there's a huge thing you just taught everybody just now. Don't fall in love with whatever's making you money now. Fall in love with whatever's don't fall in love with what used to make you money. Fall in love with what's going to make you money now and tomorrow. Don't be afraid to change. Because I think a lot of people, they're like, "Oh, I love the Airbnb thing. I love the short-term rental thing." And so they hold out for too long and then they're underwater. And instead of you seeing the trend, you're like, I'm not making my mortgage payment in 10 days anymore. Something's changed. So now I need to go back to what I had before, which I had all long-term rentals. I'm going to slowly convert the ones that aren't performing as much into long-term rentals. So you're still making money because long-term rentals are still great. It's still a great strategy. It's just not what a short-term rental is.
And that market isn't going away, right? And so you have to balance the two, is that when there's supply and demand changes, you have to change inside of your business. And there's an opportunity in every single market to make money.
There sure is.
You just have to understand it.
It's so true.
You just simply have to get educated and focus and understand what's happening in the market and make minor adjustments. It doesn't mean you have to make drastic changes all at once.
You don't have to sell them all. You don't have to dump them all. You don't have to go in the hole with them. You know, I think one of the things I learned a long time ago is don't marry the deal, marry the process. The process is making money. And whatever's going to make you money, either today or tomorrow, don't be afraid to change. And I think that's what you've taught us with this. You saw a trend of short-term rentals, you jumped into short-term rentals. Now you're seeing a trend of decline, so you're jumping back into long-term rentals. And in 2 years, if the market takes out a whole bunch of short-term rental guys when your neighbor has sold his too, and his other neighbor has sold his too, and now there's not as much supply, you'll probably roll them back into short-term rentals. Because what's great is you still own the property. You still own the property. You've got a probably good interest rate on them. You got them on a good deal. Some of them you have probably even paid off. So that's the thing. I hope everybody's catching in this podcast. What we're talking about today is trends change and things change. The big thing is to recognize and not be afraid to change with it. You know.
Yeah. Einstein said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results.
It sure is. So if your short-term rental is not making money this month, and it's not making money this next month, and it didn't make you money, I mean, if you follow that trend for 2 or 3 months, you got to change something. You hold out for too long, and you could lose.
And then you can get burned.
You get burned bad.
And so I think that's a good global analysis as well. Is that we've talked about change, we've talked about what it is that you're focused on, and be open-minded to different options of how you can make money with your property. And when you go through those changes and those decisions, you have to be okay with that, and then just go ahead and execute.
Yeah.
But if we're not willing to change, if we're not willing to make those moves, then we're slowly going to fall behind, and we'll be lost in the crowd.
Yep.
But if we are focused on our real estate, which is a business, we have to make adjustments like business owners do. We have to look at the numbers. We need to, try and understand what we should be expecting right now and in the near future so that we can anticipate what the next move is for us, compared to what's going on in the market.
And we're not saying short-term rentals is bad right now. There's some markets they're killing in short-term rentals. And they probably will forever. And we're not saying everyone's got short-term rentals to go hurry and convert into long-term. That's what we're saying at all. Short-term rentals is a great strategy. It's a good entry-level strategy. And we ought to talk about arbitrage, maybe a whole nother episode on how arbitrage, you can not only use it for rentals, but short-term rentals. And that's where you don't even buy the property. You rent out the property and sub-rent it out again.
Let's talk about that.
You want to talk about it real quick?
Yeah, no, I think we ought to defer to another episode.
I think you're right.
Because that one is a really powerful strategy.
Really powerful.
And I'm really glad that you talked about markets and the strength of each. We have a one in a rural area, in a really hot spot close to a little ski resort, and but it's a little bit distance out. That one isn't performing as quickly as we have seen in other Airbnb markets. However, our Mexico property, so we own a property in Rocky Point, Mexico, and what a wonderful market. And there are really great, there's people that are going there on a regular basis, or going every single weekend.
It's warm there.
It's warm there, right? This is practically the beach for the Phoenix and the Tucson
that's
areas.
Awesome.
And so people race down there. They'll go to the beach and they'll stay in our Airbnb. And what a great market right now. And that one's staying full. Whereas in other markets, it's not staying the same. And so don't just change because somebody says, "Hey, it's maybe time to change." Don't change too fast, but be prepared for that option. So, but I want to talk about this arbitrage.
I do too.
And so we'll talk about that in the next episode. What a powerful topic. And
yes.
If you want more information, comment and ask questions. Ultimately, we want to learn more with you, and the questions help us be able to become better with better answers and ultimately do better on our own deals. So
Definitely. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next one.
yes, we will.